A lot of clients ask us about Chapter 13. Why would we do a Chapter 13 instead of a Chapter 7? Um, there's a few reasons. A lot of times, a Chapter 13 is probably the most prevalent reason why a Chapter 13 happens is because um, the person makes too much money to do a Chapter 7. So, for your different household sizes, for like a household of one, you can make up to 53,000 and something at the time of this recording. For a household size of two, it's 60 something. A household size of three, it's more than that. And if you're below that household size, you can still file a Chapter 7 if you haven't filed bankruptcy in the past 8 years. But if you're above that, sorry, not household size, but if you're above that household income for your household size, which is the median income as set by the U.S. trustee and for your geographic area. So for Florida is the numbers we're roughly talking about. If you're above that number, then uh, most of the time you probably will be at risk of having to file a Chapter 13 because there's a means test and we do the means test, but it's getting stricter and it's also we'll do the means test and try to fit you into a 7 if we can, but otherwise, and it's likely that you should plan on having to do a Chapter 13. What is a Chapter 13? In Chapter 7, you file, and then 3 months later you get your discharge. You don't have to make any payments. You don't have to. Uh, uh, Most of the time, you don't have to make any payments unless there's certain circumstances in which you have what they call unexempt equity. They also call that liquidity in a Chapter 13, um, and uh, and so. But that's a Chapter 7, no payments. In a Chapter 13, you have to make payments for 36 to 60 months, depending on why you filed. Probably 60 months if income was the reason that you had to file. And once you make that 60th payment, regardless of whether you paid off your entire debt, if you've made all the payments as required by the court and the trustee, then you can get your discharge. The discharge is what prevents your creditors from coming after you. It's your debt being wiped out. Um, Another reason besides income that that people do a Chapter 13 is to try to keep something that they have payments on, but the payments are behind. So for most people, that's a car or a house. Theoretically, it could be other things, but it's a car or a house. And so your house is 6 months behind. There's a foreclosure case. Your house is about to go to foreclosure judgment or foreclosure sale. Hopefully not sale. Hopefully it hasn't gone to judgment yet because that's a whole nother ball of string that needs to be unwound. Um, but you get sued for foreclosure. That's when you should call a lawyer. Is when someone hands you a lawsuit or there's a lawsuit filed for foreclosure. We look at the back amount. There's different ways to address it, but basically you can hold on to the property while you address the back amount owed, which is called the arrearage, on your house. And so we address that in the 13. It gives you more time to address it, to pay it off, if you have to pay the entire back amount owed during the course of the 60-month payments, or perhaps get a mortgage modification. In the Middle District of Florida, we have a great mortgage modification program that has been very successful. One of the chief difficulties in doing a mortgage modification is that the paperwork is not standardized. The paperwork is lost by by the creditors, and so the court has addressed this by having a communications portal so that no one can say they lost the paperwork, and then having deadlines for making decisions so that the creditor has to make a decision and give you a basis within a certain length of time. They use a mediator for that. I'm finding that a lot of my clients get their modifications before the mediation date because I assume this is because the banks don't want to have to do a mediation. So they just make a decision. They use the mediation as the deadline to make the decision on the modification. Anyway, so those are the main reasons for Chapter 13, or the big reason is income. The second reason is to keep um, secured collateral, like a house. And I hope that was helpful. That video is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but we're at 5:22. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I'm sure there will be more questions on Chapter 13 that we'll be answering. Um, and thanks for tuning in to our bankruptcy channel here at freshstart.law.